Hi guys, how's it going? So I'm Joe.
And I'm Maisie.
Hi guys, how's it going? And welcome to the first ever episode 3 of Dadcast in Review. I picked the film this time, so last time Maisie picked the film, which was To All the Boys I Loved Before, which you can probably catch a link to in the video. But today it was my choice, and I picked
Boyz in the Hood.
Boyz in the Hood. So, Boyz in the Hood for me was a classic film growing up. It's something we grew up watching from quite a young age, and it was one of the films that, you know, growing up in the community I grew up in, not to say that our life was like Boyz in the Hood at all, but there was certain similarities that we could relate to, and that was definitely something that we, there wasn't lots of films like this at the time. So, Maisie, I guess we should start at the beginning, which is with the plot.
Yeah.
So why don't you break down the plot for the listeners?
It starts off when they're younger.
Mm-hmm.
Trey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I can't remember the other people's names.
Trey, Doughboy, and Ricky are the main three.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just doing their thing, really. I don't know.
So Trey's got to move to his dad's, hasn't he?
He's moved to his dad's, and then.
So he moves to his dad's because his mum, he gets into a fight at school, and they've already got this agreement that if it kicks off anymore, he needs to go to live with his dad. So he goes to live with his dad.
And then, I don't know, it goes 7 years later. Oh no, he sees a dead body, doesn't he?
Yeah, so they do some kid stuff there. It's clear that they're living in an area that's quite poor, quite a lot of high crime and things like that. And then it fast forwards to 7 years later.
And it's just, I can't remember, it's just him really with, isn't it a garden, like a party?
For Doughboy coming out of prison, yeah. In a way, it's because there's not loads of, it's just their life. It's not really like this big thing happening and that big thing happening. It's their life, and it builds up the picture, I suppose, of the community that they live in. There's obviously a lot of drug dealing and drug addicts, crime, police who are really judgmental, prejudice and racist, and then it kind of shows as well, I guess it's partly Trey growing up and his dad being the man, stepping up and being the man, and it partly is about Doughboy and Ricky, who are brothers, and Doughboy and his mum don't get along. She doesn't like him because at one point, they explain at one point they've got different dads, and Ricky's the golden child and Doughboy isn't, and Doughboy ends up, as a drug dealer, he ends up, going in and out of prison and stuff like that. But it just follows their friendship, I suppose. It's a bit of a coming of age film, really, isn't it? It's about their friendship and how they've grown up. But the main pivotal moment, and there are spoilers here, the story ultimately is about a choice that Trey has to make.
Yeah.
So Ricky, in a very famous scene,
Is it famous?
That scene is very famous. Ricky! It's famous. Ricky gets shot and killed, and Trey has to make a choice, basically, as to whether or not he avenges his friend, or he doesn't.
His dad doesn't want him to.
His dad doesn't want him to, his girlfriend doesn't want him to, and there's lots of side little bits along the way, but why don't we get to the cast and the acting, because then we can talk a little bit about these different set pieces and stuff. So, the film, Cuba Gooding Jr. plays adult Trey, Lawrence Fishburne plays his dad, Angela Bassett plays his mum, and then Ice Cube plays Doughboy. So as adults, obviously the cast, the children's bit is shorter, but I thought,
liked it though.
Yeah, so you thought it was done well?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It kind of gave you like a starting picture for, I don't know. It
Gives you more of an attachment, I guess, to who they are and who they become, I suppose, and it builds up this friendship. You can tell right at the beginning that Doughboy, because the beginning bit ends with Doughboy getting put in the back of a police car because he's robbed a shop, hasn't he? Him and his friend him and Chris have robbed a shop. So it kind of sets up that Doughboy is headed that way. So Cuba Gooding Jr., obviously he is really well known, really famous. You're not someone you've really come across. You recognised him, but he's not someone you really remember. How did you think he portrayed the role of Trey?
I thought he was very good.
Yeah? So he had a few, he wasn't, he was in no means kind of portrayed as this perfect person. He was trying to get his girlfriend to sleep with him and this and that. They were going through normal, more older teenage things, and he was still trying to be a bit of the man, wasn't he? Still, referring to girls in a bit of a derogatory way and checking out other girls and things like that. But he was he obviously had a strong male role model and stuff, but he played the part
I thought it was good.
I thought he played the part well. He obviously did have to make a choice at one point when Ricky was killed and Doughboy was going to get revenge. In fact, it was Trey's idea, wasn't it? He said, "Meet me," and then he went and got his dad's gun, and his dad confronted him. How do you feel like that scene played out?
I thought it was good. It was like quite emotional because I don't know if he was going to. I thought he might shoot the dad, but like not like in the heart, like in the hand or something. I don't know.
That's extreme.
But I don't know. I wasn't sure if he'd give him the gun though.
There was one scene before that actually that I wanted to talk about. That was quite an emotional scene, which is after Trey and Ricky were pulled over by the police. And the policeman put a gun to him and basically was saying how he hated people like him and how it wouldn't cause any no one would know if he just pulled the trigger and put a bullet in his brain. And Cuba Gooding Jr. then had to portray the emotion of that. He went to his girlfriend's house and this scene played out where he basically breaks down. How do you feel like he did in that? How do you feel like that?
Oh, it was good. I was on the verge of tears because I didn't cry a lot, so, you know.
It must be good because she doesn't cry much at all, apart from Endgame, but, that's another story.
Only film. And I don't know, I thought he was really good. I felt like, it just made me feel so angry, like with the police officer and everything.
So it conveyed that anger, frustration and fear, I suppose, of what it must be like to be young and black in America with prejudiced police putting you in situations where I guess you're powerless is what to me it conveyed was that he was powerless. He had no power when the police had the gun at him. He didn't have any power.
But the police didn't even know him. It's like...
Yeah, but he looked like, because he was saying when he had the gun on him, are you one of those, this gang or that gang, which set are you with? So the policeman was obviously making an assumption that he was part of a gang. So yeah, I thought that scene was good. And then we had the scene where his dad confronted him with the gun. And then there was, I guess, the pivotal moment where he eventually gave the gun to his dad and went out. But then he went out the window, didn't he?
I wasn't expecting him to do that.
And he went off with Doughboy and they're riding around. And I guess this is where it demonstrated a little bit about peer pressure. This is quite an extreme situation. His best friend's been killed, who is Doughboy's brother. They're all friends and they're all going to get revenge.
But the same thing, they're not... I don't know, because it wasn't really peer pressure like, do it.
No.
It was like a different type of peer pressure.
Yeah, it wasn't, you need to come or you're not our friend. It was, he felt that he had to get revenge, and I would imagine what I saw when he was in the car and you saw a tear like rolling down his face, like he was really battling with himself because he's not a thug, he wasn't a gangster, he wasn't selling drugs, he wasn't involved in the lifestyle that Doughboy was involved in, he didn't have a gun himself, or he wasn't this person, but he obviously was very angry and he wanted revenge. So I thought they summed it up really well, that battle, without even much dialogue. He didn't really say much, but eventually he just said, let me out the car, basically is what he said, wasn't it? You stop the car on, let me out the car, I need to get out. And I thought that was quite powerful because it showed that even though all his friends were still on it, he knew that it wasn't for him. And so all in all, Cuba Gooding Jr.
Good.
Fan? Yeah? Good actor. Then we had Dad. We had Furious Styles, who was played by the wonderful Lawrence Fishburne, who you do know.
Yeah.
We like Lawrence Fishburne. Matrix and Akeelah and the Bee.
Yeah.
Which is a great film if you haven't seen it. It's family friendly, really good one for younger kids, I think. Well, maybe 8, 9, 10-year-olds to watch. It's a really nice.
I can't remember when I watched it. I watched it ages ago.
But a film to make you think, I guess. So Lawrence Fishburne played. What was the dad like?
He wanted to be a strong male. I can't think of the word.
Role model.
Role model, that's it. He wanted to be a strong male role model to his son, and I don't know. He was really good. I liked him. So
he could see what was happening in the community.
Yeah.
There were times where he said, even when they were young, it ended with Doughboy getting put in a police car, and he said to Trey, "I don't want you turning out. You can see the road he's going down." So Furious knew what the game was around. There was a scene, so there were lots of teachable moments, I think, within Boys in the Hood that were purposefully put there. There was a moment where Furious is talked to, as when they're adults, takes his son and Ricky to a block in Compton, which is not the area they live in, and is talking about gentrification, and there's a big billboard about sell your home, and he's talking to the whole community, and that's definitely a teachable moment. There's even a teachable moment when, right at the beginning, when Doughboy's first out of prison, and they're sat around playing dominoes, and they're talking about AIDS, and they're talking about, one of them is like, oh no, I wouldn't sleep with someone who's a drug addict, but I might get some oral sex from them. And their friend says, hold on, you can catch AIDS from that. And it's this whole dialogue that didn't actually really need to be there, but it was
I didn't realise it, so...
Yeah, but it's a subtle moment that actually had a purpose to it. At the point when this was made in the 90s, the AIDS epidemic in America was massive. Oral sex does, you can transmit STIs through oral sex. So it was I think John Singleton knew that there's going to be a lot of young men watching this kind of film, and it was an opportunity to teach a fact that people might not know. So I thought, so that was a teachable moment. They talked about gentrification, but there were other bits in there about him, you know, as a father, wasn't there, kind of guiding his kid, his son, and trying to be the best man he could be and stepping up and stuff. Then we had Ricky. So Ricky, I don't have the name of the actor that played Ricky, but I will get it up. It was Morris Chestnut. That was it. Morris Chestnut is the guy who played Ricky. No, he's not somebody who I know loads about. But how do you think he played the part?
I thought he was really good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You thought he played it well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was the football star. He had a golden child from his mum. Had a really promising future, and because of a silly argument that happened on Crenshaw Boulevard one night, something came back around, and that's how he kind of ended up getting killed. I thought he played the parts well. I thought he did well.
Yeah, he was good.
And then we had Ice Cube, who played Doughboy. You like Ice Cube?
Yeah.
We're fans of Ice Cube. So Ice Cube played Doughboy. He was the brother who wasn't doing so well in regards to the way his mum felt.
Mum hated him so much.
So it did get it briefly explained, but I don't know if you missed it. They were talking on the front porch, and one of the boys said, "Oh, why is your mum always on you like that?" Whatever. And then another one of his brethren of his friends said, "Oh, they've got different dads." So Ricky's dad, she liked Ricky's dad, but she didn't like Doughboy's dad, or she's angry. So it translated through. Again, not the way it should be, but that's real life, and it can happen.
Yeah.
Where, you know, and she even said when he was little, there was the scene where the mum's talking to Doughboy and is saying, "You're worthless, you're just like your dad, you're never going to be anything." So that kind of set up subtly that she didn't...
But he didn't even do anything. And then
No.
when Ricky was shot, she was like, "What did you do?" I was just like...
Well, yeah, and I think that was partly emotion and anger. That scene, so they bring Ricky's body back, and his girlfriend and baby are there, and his mum's there. Obviously, it's quite an emotional scene. How do you feel like that was played out? Do you feel like it conveyed the emotion well?
Yeah, really well.
Do you know something that I noticed at that point, and I've only noticed it this time around? As soon as Ricky got shot, as soon as Trey shouted "Ricky," the music stopped, and the music didn't start again all through that whole scene where they're screaming, they're crying, and I think that was quite powerful, because sometimes music can be used really well, and it can be used to build up tension or convey sadness or whatever, but this was quite raw. It was his dead body, there was blood everywhere, his wife was screaming, his baby was crying, the mum was crying, everybody was wailing and stuff, and I thought it was quite powerful. And it didn't need music to help to convey that. No. Do you know what I mean? But it was. I thought that was quite good. Briefly, obviously, Angela Bassett, who is an amazing actress, played Trey's mum. So she was Trey's mum. You might not have seen her in many things, but how do you feel? She was only in the film a little bit, but she was quite a strong female.
I thought she was good.
Yeah. she definitely put Furious in his place once or twice when she needed to. Music again wasn't. It was quite subtly used. There was a lot of background music when people were playing music on the block or in the cars or whatever like this. I think it's definitely past her bedtime. And visual effects, there wasn't much to touch on with visual effects apart from, you know, when Ricky got shot, it did look real. It wasn't over the top and gratuitous, but it was done well. Okay, so now there's a few random facts that I am gonna talk about. Maisie hasn't heard this yet, so this is her first time hearing this. So John Singleton was 23 years old when he directed the film. He was the director.
Okay.
He was 23 when he directed it. It was his first film that he directed, and it was very much autobiographical. So it wasn't based on a single individual, but it was about his life growing up in South Central. He was moved similarly to Trey. He left his mum's and went to live with his dad when he was a similar age. So it's quite autobiographical.
You could do so. You do.
Biographical. And he did grow up around violence and poverty, and that was something that he wanted to put through in this film. Another interesting fact about the film is that he was offered $100,000 to walk away. So he went to a big Hollywood company. He'd never directed a film before, but he had this story to tell. That was his story to tell. And the director, the heads of these companies, basically, it was Columbia Pictures, said to him, "We'll give you $100,000 if you walk away and let a more experienced director direct the film."
Oh, so it wasn't because of the film?
They wanted a more experienced director to tell the story.
But how do you know? Because he could be an amazing director.
Well, you don't. I guess it's because it would have been a big gamble to take, so say. Another interesting fact, so this came out at a similar time to Terminator 2, and although Terminator 2 made more money, technically, Boyz in the Hood was a bigger financial success. So Terminator 2 made a lot more money. It made $205 million domestically, and Singleton's film Boyz in the Hood only made $58 million. However, Terminator 2 cost $102 million to make. Boyz in the Hood cost $6 million. Singleton didn't want too many actors that had done much before, so this was Ice Cube's first big role.
Was it?
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne.
Was this before Friday then?
Yeah, this was before Friday. Yeah, this was before Friday. Lawrence Fishburne had done some small things. He'd been in other stuff. He'd been small roles in other stuff, but John Singleton didn't want it to be loads of actors and actresses that everybody knew already. He wanted to so I thought that was quite a cool fact. As you might know, on Dadcast in review, it's either a definite, maybe, or okay. So should we go 1, 2, 3? It's a thumbs up from you, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's like I don't know. It's not really a definite. It's more like watch it before you die.
Cool. So there you go. 2 thumbs up for Boyz in the Hood. John Singleton. We will be revisiting some of your other films because I need to educate this one. Next time it's Maisie's turn to pick. So if you're interested in finding out what she picks, then check out our channel, Dadcast with the Man Them on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook and Insta and on Twitter, at DadcastWTMD. And if you're interested in supporting what we do, you can head over to patreon.com/DadcastWTMD. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share it if you like it. If you've got some suggestions of films, feel free to pop them in the comments and we'll have a little read. But thanks very much for your time, and we will catch you next time. Peace.